The book, The American Dream, inspiring life stories of entrepreneurs who achieve financial success through free market capitalism. What makes this book so special? Well, A, you're going to learn a lot from it. And B, the guy who wrote it, Robert J. Russell, Bob Russell, local guy. Bob, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
We're doing very well. How are you doing this morning?
You're just fine.
Tell us about your local connection, your roots, and a little background on yourself.
Well, I grew up on a farm south of Capron, Illinois, and went to Capron Grade School and North Boone High School. And eventually, after college, I went to work in banking and worked my entire career in Rockford as a banker and retired from Amcor Bank about 20 years ago.
And now in Florida, correct?
Right.
So is that where the golf ball on the cover comes from, part of the current lifestyle, Bob?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But through that time, also an entrepreneur, in addition to being in the banking industry, owned some apartment buildings, some commercial strip centers, some waterbed stores. So you took some initiative on your end, too.
Well, that's true. That's true. I had a dream that I wanted to retire early and play games, because on the farm as a kid, we didn't have much of a chance to play games. There was a lot of work to do. And so it was my goal and my dream to retire to Florida and play golf and tennis, and I'm doing it.
Well, in addition to the golf and tennis, obviously some writing goes into this as well. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, actually, it was one of the fellows, the first story in the book about Jim Holton. I was riding in a golf cart with him one day, and we were engaging in conversation, and I asked him about his background, and I just found it so interesting. The guy really struggled a lot as a youngster. He grew up on a farm and didn't go to college. He bounced around from one construction job to another as a laborer, and one day he got a job as a salesman selling tools to contractors. And this guy asked him if he knew anybody who could drill holes in concrete. And he said no, he didn't. And then he started thinking about it and thought, gosh, I'll buy a drill and I'll start doing it. And he did. And then somebody else asked him if he knew anybody who could saw the expansion joints in sidewalks. And said no, he didn't. So there again, he bought a saw and started doing that. And eventually he had 25 trucks on the road doing this and retired as a multimillionaire. Just a great story. That was the one that actually inspired my book. But there are 16 other stories that are just as good.
Bob Russell with us. They're all through the book, The American Dream, which you can find at Amazon.com. Kindle edition is there. Paperback edition is there, too. Former Northern Illinois resident and writing stories, inspiring life stories. 17 different stories in the book. 17 friends who had some financial success, and entrepreneur, small business, or as in the story you just told, kind of being both in the right place at the right time and taking that personal initiative to get the job done. What qualities, when you look at the 17 stories in the book, what qualities are similar or shared by a majority of those subjects?
Well, I think they all had a strong work ethic. Most of them had parents that kind of pushed them to always have a job and to make some extra money. So I've always thought that almost any one of these guys could have been successful in other businesses as well. It wasn't that this business was the only one they could succeed at. They were just determined and intelligent and just wouldn't give up. And that's how entrepreneurs, I think, generally succeed. They just refuse to quit.
Well, I think one of the things we learned from the story you just told us, too, is if someone says to you, hey, do you know someone who does X, Y, or Z? If you don't, you should tell them that, I'll do that. Just give me a second to learn how to do it.
Exactly right.
The American Dream, the book. The author, Bob Russell, with us here. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. The 17 friends, 17 pictures, not pictures, but profiles in the book, include a number of those who have been successful right here in the Rockford area. Who are some of those people?
Oh, I'm glad you asked about that. Brian and Bev Nelson, who are noted bridge players, are from Rockford. When I first met them a long time ago, I guess it was about 1976, Bev ran a bridge center on East State Street, and her husband Brian was an accountant in the same building. And Gary Maitland, who owned the bedroom at the time, asked them to join him in the business, and they did, and they decided to expand the business in Indianapolis, Indiana. So Brian and Bev moved out there, and eventually they owned 13 waterbed stores. And they eventually sold the business to a couple of their employees and retired to Fort Myers, Florida at age 49. During their retirement, they started another bridge center in Fort Myers, which grew to be the fifth largest in the United States. And it was taking up so much of their retirement that they finally decided they better sell that too, so they could devote full time to retirement. and then another guy, Joe Eaton, he grew up in Pecatonica, and he credits his work ethic to his father, who always wanted he and his brothers to do something constructive. So he was always doing projects for friends and neighbors and uncles and aunts, and eventually he got into the electrical union as an apprenticeship, became a journeyman, and then started a company called Special Power in 1980, which is one of the largest and most successful electrical contracting businesses in northern Illinois. And then another Rockfordite, Mike Fisher, he grew up on the east side of Rockford, and he was enamored by his father's woodworking tools, and he started making things at a very young age. And at age 20, he started Heartwood Creations, which is located, it's in a large complex right behind the Lincoln Junior High School. And that business progressed very well, and Mike eventually sold the business. Well, I should mention, they make novelty wood products, which they sell throughout the world. And Mike eventually sold that business when he was 49 years of age to one of his employees. And so he achieved the American dream.
So basically what you're saying is you hang around with a lot of unemployed people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and the other thread that we're getting through this, Bob, is the inspiration for many of these people came at a very young age by a role model in their lives who instilled a strong work ethic.
That's right. Very true.
Bob Russell with us. The American Dream is the book. You can find it at Amazon.com, both the Kindle edition, paperback edition. He's a former State Line area resident, now down in Florida, and a couple of Rockfordians in the book profiled too, those who have had some financial success, small business owners. We have heard recently, Bob, from some small business owners or past small business owners, and even big business owners, small ones that become large, that say, boy, you look at the environment today, regulations, you look at the taxing environment. I'm not sure either A, I could do it again in this environment, or at least B, I'm not sure it would be as easy to build what I built if I had to work in these conditions. Again, regulatory environment, things like that. Did you hear that echoed from any of your stories as well?
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot, that the government regulations have made it much more difficult, and that maybe they couldn't do it today. And that's resulted in a lot of people asking the question, is the American dream dead? And I really don't think it is at all. But it is tougher, I think, than it was 20 or 30 years ago because of government interference.
And some of the attitudes of the people of the world today as well, capitalism not being appreciated nearly as much as it was at one time, it would appear.
That's right. Capitalism has made us the greatest and strongest country the world has ever known. And it seems to be under attack today. Only 60% of the American people favor capitalism. And those between the ages of 18 and 29, only 49% favor, or I should say they favor socialism. So there's a lot of people out there that are willing to give up capitalism. And it's given us everything we have. I sure hope we can stop that trend.
Bob Russell with us, the book, The American Dream, available at Amazon.com. It's Riley and Scott at WROK. You profiled 17 friends in the book. Did you, well, I want to say, did you? Is there anyone out there you wish you could have access to, someone who's built a business, someone who has lived this dream, that you wish you had some access to kind of poke around their brain as to how they did it and how that story took place?
Well, just off the top of my head, I'm a big admirer of Mitt Romney for what he's done to help other people who wanted to start a business. He's been very instrumental in starting, for example, Staples and many other companies. So I think he's a real genius. And if I could spend some time with him, I think that would be really great.
Bob, before we let you go, the really important question: how's the golf game?
It's been better in the past. As I get older, I find I don't do as well.
Yeah, see, for me, age is not an impediment. I was horrible 5 years ago. I'm bad now. I'm going to be terrible in 10 years.
I like to think that age doesn't affect my consistency one little bit. It started out poor, and it stayed that way. You want to grab a great book and learn something from it as well. The American Dream, inspiring life stories of entrepreneurs who achieve financial success through free market capitalism. Robert J. Russell is your author. Get yourself a copy and give some to your friends as well. Bob, thanks for taking time out of your day for us.
Riley and Scott, I really appreciate it. You guys are really nice, and I couldn't thank you enough.
Oh, you already have. Have a great weekend.